I think it just shows the power of the patriarchy. Half of our planet menstruates
Mm.
for half of our life. So
Mhm.
this is something going on all around us, and yet we've all kept it very secret, whether it's making the plastic sound in the bathroom very silent or
Mm.
slipping the tampon into our sleeve and walking. These are all cultural norms that, it just shows the strength of the patriarchy.
Welcome to the Kindness Is Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the true meaning of kindness. I'm your host, Kaitlin Johnstone, the co-founder of Kind Cotton. Let's dive in. I can't tell you all how much I think about empowering my daughter to be in charge of her own body, to love every part of her, and to have a healthy relationship when it comes to her mental health, her appearance, and what is happening in her body. And I think for a very, very, very long time, still to this day, I think we're making tremendous improvements when it comes to discussions around consent. And if we want to create girls and women who are confident in who they are, these conversations need to be happening. These conversations need to be normalized. So I am incredibly excited to talk to my guests today about just that. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Kindness Is Pod, where I, your host Kaitlin, interview incredible people and have real, honest, and open conversations about kindness. So today I have Konika with me. Konika is an author, science teacher, and a mom on a mission to flip puberty positive. For over 2 decades, she has been a kindergarten through 6th grade science educator. She founded Girl Power Science with her daughter during the pandemic when it was clearly obvious the world needed more empowering science education. Konika aims to end period shame one reading at a time with her children's book, 1 in a Million, a first book about periods. She is passionate about body literacy and building communities of confident learners that celebrate growth. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's so fun to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you here. I know I gave your bio, and it seems as though every time I have someone on and I'm like, what else would you like to share? They're like, well, you read my entire bio. But if there is anything that stood out to you that maybe you forgot, please share with everyone.
Well, so like you said, I was a teacher for 20 years, a long time. And sometimes people ask, like, what made you decide to shift? And we all know that the pandemic was really a time where we reevaluated our values and thought to ourselves, what do we want to do with this one precious life? And during that pivotal time, climate change and wildfire season here in California was really starting to impact my mental health. We actually weren't even allowed to take a walk in the forest or walk on the beach because of the pandemic. And then with the wildfire smoke coming in, whether we were allowed to or not, we couldn't breathe the air. So I've been an environmentalist also for all of these years as a science teacher. And so this combination of the pandemic and realizing the lack of science knowledge and education and climate change, at the time, since I was kindergarten through 4th grade science teacher, I had 250 unvaccinated students and I have asthma. So I did not feel comfortable inside the classroom with all 250, not all at the same time, of course, but
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And I didn't feel comfortable taking them outdoors, which was what, most of the teachers were doing at the time. So it was just this dark moment where my identity has been obviously in education. And I thought, like, can I not do this anymore? Because wildfire season in California is not even a season anymore. It's happening with the drought all the time. So I thought, like, what do I have to offer? And this is where Girl Power Science, or GPS, was born. I was known for this 3-part unit that I would teach that was about puberty, body image, and nutrition. And so I just decided, to start this business. And also, actually, this was an extraordinary all-girl school, but so many families in San Francisco said, that's not fair. We want access to this education and we have no puberty education. Can you please, teach us too? And so I wanted to expand, who my reach. And so that's where it was born. And puberty, periods, all of this stuff, my family did not talk about it. In fact, there was so much shame, such a mountain of shame around it, that I didn't even tell my parents that I was publishing this book. My mom
really?
found out on an Instagram live. She found me on Instagram, and then, I embraced it once they found out. I took the book to Texas this summer and I actually recorded them reading it to me. It's never too late to heal some of that shame. And obviously putting your story out into the world like this and telling it over and over is so healing.
Your response just hit me on so many levels. And I didn't know your true backstory, and I don't know that you know mine either. And I was an educator as well. And the pandemic came, and I was living in the state of Florida. And similarly to you, I had very high-risk parents. I had a newborn, and I did not feel comfortable, particularly in the state that I was in, going back into the classroom. And that's when I took that moment to say, I'm so incredibly passionate about inclusive education, and I'm so passionate about providing access to books. How can I take what I'm doing just in my small classroom that I know makes tremendous impact? And I love educators more than anything in the world because they really are shifting our youth and our future generation. However, how can I make more of a global impact? So that really resonated with me. But also that piece of, you just spoke about this in 2020, fast forward to 2023, and we're in climate catastrophe. Some scientists would say, right?
150%, 200%, yes.
Yeah, and we need to act. And the fact that I took the pandemic so seriously, nature became a safe haven for me. And then this summer was the first summer, I'm right outside of DC. So it was the first summer where we were truly impacted by terrible air quality. And to have that peace taken away from me, like, I don't feel comfortable inside now, I don't feel comfortable outside. It was a really, really, really difficult time for me. So I'm happy that you shared that on a personal level.
Yeah. And I guess I always try to look at the bright side or the silver lining. And I thought that the East Coast of the United States would be the last to experience it. And then it happened. And Canada, of course, seemed like Canada was on, the whole country seemed like it was on fire when I looked at the maps. So the time is now. There's no time to waste. And the kids, of course, get it so much more than us. Like we handed them this mess and they feel responsible and it's depressing to them. And so that's why, GPS is all about empowering girls, specifically centering unapologetically girls. And it's about just tapping into our inner GPS and our intuition to navigate our way through. I was saying puberty, but this week I launched Little Sheroes, which is for ages 3 and up. And our topic was I'm the boss of my body. And it was about consent. And so I'm expanding, because what I'm realizing over and over is the younger we share this messaging with girls, with kids, with everyone, the younger, we are. It's a mindset shift. So we're just shifting the mindset and reaching them before media and everything starts to put that negative messaging out there.
Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that is incredibly ingrained in our society, and just how GPS and everything that you do truly, I was talking to Konika before we hopped on, and I love it because it's not just educational. And I want everyone at the end of this to go and follow them on Instagram and check out what they are doing, because you get a real sense of empowerment and self-love and just living in your truth and being comfortable and confident in doing so. So can you just talk about how the media tries to not do that for particularly girls and women?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, especially connecting back to the pandemic, that technology became such a huge part of all of our lives, especially for the kids. They had their iPads and their only communication was via technology. And um, and I always tell, the girls, just we know that the capitalist system is designed to make us feel less than worthy, not enough, so that we'll buy more stuff. And the kids actually love this.
Mm.
Whether, we're doing an intuitive eating lesson, or I actually have added recently this summer how to talk to kids about porn. So we did a camp this summer. I called it the mindful metaverse, but it's all really about mindfulness, and being savvy with what is the messaging coming, and then what's behind the message. Who's the person delivering this and their why. And if you dissect that, even when you're like walking down the cereal aisle and you see the colorful boxes that are promising, whatever they are, it applies to everything. And again, kids don't want to be tricked. So this is actually a really catchy message for them, that they are just like, yeah, I don't need to buy this to look this way. And also teaching them, though, that social media isn't entirely bad, because we're not going to get away from it. And the algorithms are such a powerful suck. They're going to pull. They already are. I mean, as young as, I don't know, actually, some of my students are 8 and they're already, cruising around on social media. So, and this has been, my daughter, of course, is like the perfect guinea pig, but with her, we post positive messaging together. And this is actually a pivotal thing for mental health during puberty, is kids need to have a connected with a sense of purpose, something that's doing greater good for our planet. And so using social media in a positive way can be really empowering, and shift the whole dynamic. I'm actually comfortable with, I don't give my daughter my phone for long amounts of time, and it's supervised, but I am comfortable with her scrolling. My feed is 100% all about girl power. And so, that, and she likes cute animals. So,
I love that. I mean, I need to look at some cute animals to do a social media cleanse, because I'm just so involved in advocacy stuff that can become very heavy. Now, it needs to be, right? We need to be having these open and honest conversations about what is happening in the world. And there is also some beauty in the fact that you're connecting with community, and you're reminded that you are not alone in these efforts. And there's just so many incredible people, such as yourself, who I connected with through social media, but also as a young child.
yes.
They need to be seeing these empowering messages, and
Yeah,
these
and that's actually ties back
hopeful.
in. Yes. It ties back into the social media. For some people, that's becoming very individual. But for others, we are, it's going to take a massive community coming together for us to make the changes we want. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're mobilizing. So, social media can be very powerful and impactful in a positive way. And I guess within the realm of puberty and periods, it's also normalizing for my generation, the moms that are coming and getting support, or dads too. Actually, dads loved this book because they were comfortable with sharing the narrative that we wrote. We kept it really simple, and we kept period management out of it. It was more like an empowering narrative. But it's healing for us, and we realize how normal it is that we all felt shame around this time, but we also realize that it doesn't have to be the same for our kids. And we're seeing that. And, puberty, statistically, is a time when confidence drops, especially for girls. The changes are so much more public and pronounced. And actually, in terms of the hormones on our mental health, it's more magnified for girls. And so we're seeing that when we empower girls with knowledge at this critical time, which, by the way, is a lot younger. I started teaching puberty when I was at the school at second grade, because one of my students came in and she thought she had breast cancer when she felt a breast bud beneath her nipple. And so it's actually really normal now for that to develop in second grade, age 7, age 8. And we all know that when we're talking about change, that if we can proactively know about it, that it's going to come, then we're mentally so much more prepared. It's like that. It's a growth mindset. We're ready for the change and pivoting and adapting to it.
I think that's so important because I can remember the first time. I mean, I have a 3.5-year-old, right? So it's not often that I have privacy. And any caregivers listening to this, I'm sure you can relate to that. But I can remember the moment that my daughter realized when I was on my period. And I can sit back and think like, oh, this is weird and uncomfortable because society has told us that this is weird and uncomfortable. But I caught myself almost immediately. And my daughter knows that once a month, Mama has her period. She doesn't obviously understand all the intricacies and science behind it. But I think even that is important for her to know that at some point in her life, she is going to be experiencing this as well. And I mean, the language right now is just very much matter of fact. This is what's happening with Mama at this point in time. But A, she's intrigued by it. And B, I'm hoping that just like opening up the conversation early on, she isn't going to have to feel a sense of shame surrounding it when wanting to ask me questions. Because I do also say to her whenever she notices it, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, you are an educator.
Yes.
That is awesome. And she's going to be ready for the book soon. So the book is ages 4 and up. So she's almost there. But it's such a simple thing, right? But that shift is huge. I mean, it's just your tone of voice, and you've opened up the door for conversation and questions. I think it just shows the power of the patriarchy. Half of our planet menstruates for half of our life. So this is something going on all around us, and yet we've all kept it very secret, whether it's making the plastic sound in the bathroom very silent or slipping the tampon into our sleeve and walking. These are all cultural norms that, it just shows the strength of the patriarchy.
Or the fact that, I don't know why this just came to me, but the fact that many tampons are actually not great for us, but God forbid you wear period underwear or a pad or something, because that is not deemed societally normal.
Yes. I mean, there's a mom, and this is actually, it's been fun because moms are coming to me with stories. And again, part of my healing journey, because we wouldn't really have the context to share the story. But now it's like, oh, you're an author of a children's book. Okay, there's context for me to share this story. And this mom told me that her mom made sure that when she started her period, and she was very young, that she started by using tampons because her mom said it's gross not to, and that you're going to stink if you don't. And so this messaging that our bodies are gross, that there's something to fear or hide, it's permeating so many places. And then not to mention, when you said toxic to our bodies, I did research and it wasn't easy to find, but on our website, I've shared toxic free period products, and it was not easy to find. And then, so I'm on these obscure websites buying it for our household, to try out these different products. But secondary, we did talk about climate change. When we think about how much plastic, it's pretty hard to find tampons that don't have a plastic applicator these days. The one brand I was using for a while had cardboard, but no longer. And then, of course, now you can get ones without applicators, and you can get everything out. We're very lucky. Things have evolved. Kids love period underwear that get so excited.
Yeah, me too.
I don't have to wear a pad. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
But yes, when we think about just the damage to the planet, in addition to the toxins we've been putting into our body as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. I mean, I never even really thought about it that way. That could be because I've been wearing period underwear for quite some time now. So I kind of like just did away with having to buy anything, and it's amazing. And
Wonderful.
everyone should check into it because it really
Yes.
does not feel like a pad either.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
It's
But
incredible.
I want to highlight, I mean, I know that we've talked about this throughout this entire conversation,
Mhm.
but the ability to have something at your fingertips to read to your child about an uncomfortable conversation is so powerful. And that's why I love children's books, because I think, and you spoke to this a little bit, but I think not only are they such a tool to open conversations with your children in a way in which maybe you weren't sure how to discuss them, but it also helps us do a lot of our own unlearning. And I just want you to share with everyone where they can get One in a Million, how they can support the work that you are doing. Also, you are a self-published author, which I always love having on, and I celebrate everything that you have done, because it's pretty incredible when you talk about the grand scheme of like the publishing world and how hard that is as a self-published author. So where can people support you?
Yes. So if you're in the United States, you can go directly to our website, girlpowerscience.com. And then Amazon, it's also on Amazon. And I'm trying to figure out how to get into libraries and bookstores. So, this is fresh and, out. So I will figure that out. But for right now, girlpowerscience.com. And Amazon. And then we also offer online courses for parents that go along with all of our body literacy topics. So everything from how to talk to kids about porn, to body image stuff, to intuitive eating, boundaries and consent. All of these things, like GPS is helping navigate this crazy world, but flip the narrative. And also, like you were saying earlier, realize we're not alone in this, and that we're so much better together. So, so powerful together. When you, again, think about 50% of our planet is experiencing this. If we talked about it more, it would normalize it. And not only that, but, we can celebrate this growth. I always talk about an attitude of gratitude, that our bodies are healthy and growing. So once we know that this is a normal thing, then we're just so grateful, especially pandemic kids understand that when we're healthy and we're not sick, that we're very, very grateful that our bodies are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So
I love that. I love everything about what you were doing. I think it is just, it's so important. And it is such a mindset shift from how we grew up, and particularly how our parents grew up. I think overall, that generation is having much more of a difficult time understanding these topics and why it's so important to talk about them with our children. I mean, it's really interesting whenever I discuss things that involve our daughter specifically, and how I want her to grow up being confident and feeling strong in her ability to say no and own the control over her own body. But then I also explain to the grandparents that that means if she doesn't want a hug right now, she doesn't have to give you a hug right now. It's like, they're like,
exactly.
yes, 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 to all the other things. Like, I want that for her too. Of course I do. But then
Yep.
they're like, oh, why won't you give me a hug? And I'm like, this is what we need to be doing, so that she
Yes.
knows from an early age that she is
The boss of her
empowered.
body.
Yes, yes.
Yep. Yes.
100%.
And especially in this post Roe versus Wade world, we're seeing, bans. Even like, I wasn't sure if this book would be banned in Florida because they don't want girls to learn about, or menstruators to learn about periods until 5th grade or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's even up for discussion now, potentially. Or some people want it to be up for discussion. We'll say that.
yes. Yeah. I've been
Yeah.
meeting up with more, parents that are organizing in Florida that are
Mm,
reaching out for the book,
yeah, absolutely.
So if we can't get it in our classrooms, at least we can get the book at home and set a
Yeah.
foundation because, you know, so I taught for 20 years. Every year I had one third grader that started her period. So
Mhm.
third grade, it's catching parents by surprise. Sometimes it's like they'll call me and ask for support after the fact, but I
Mhm.
can't underscore the importance, whether she's going to develop earlier or later. I actually try to avoid the terms early bloomer and late bloomer because it's already adding judgment of early and late. It's actually perfectly
Mm,
normal to be in that spectrum anywhere from age 7 all the way, up to age 14. So it's
mhm,
just a
mhm,
wide spectrum. But either way, whether they're going to develop later or earlier, they're going to have classmates that are. And so we can support each
mhm.
other when we are powerful with our knowledge or empowered with our knowledge.
Yes, for sure. That ties back to the whole community aspect of things and being in community with one another, which I love, which is a wonderful transition into you're on the Kindness Is podcast. And I think everything that you have spoken about this morning has been so crucial to the true meaning of what kindness is. But I would love to hear your definition. If you could name it in any sort of way, what would it be?
Yeah. So celebrating growth as well as celebrating our mistakes, um, and growth in yourself and in others when you see, growth. Remembering that, my book is called One in a Million because literally we are born with millions of eggs, and you and I and everyone on our planet is one in a million. So remembering that we are one of a kind for
Mm,
ourselves, but also seeing the uniqueness and appreciating the uniqueness in everyone we meet. If we always had that scientific mindset of they are one in a million, there were a million, eggs in those ovaries. Um, and so, celebrating diversity and what makes you unique. And then as a science teacher, I have to throw in one last one, which is thinking about biodiversity too. So, from the microscopic plankton that's creating oxygen for us to breathe, to the giant redwood tree that's also, creating oxygen, respecting all forms of life on our planet.
mm. This could not have come at a more perfect time, and I appreciate this conversation more than you know. And I encourage all of you to check out the wonderful things that Konika is doing. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. So wonderful to be here.
Absolutely. This week's episode touched me on so many levels that I wasn't even expecting, and I'm just so grateful to have had this conversation. I'm excited to know that there are people out there who want to educate girls around body empowerment and loving themselves and showing up for themselves and normalizing conversations that I believe we have shamed for so many years. So go out, support this incredible author, grab a copy of the book, and let's start talking to our children about things that matter. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Kindness Is podcast. If you love it and it's adding even a little bit of value to your life, we would love, love, love if you could subscribe, rate, and review so we can reach even more people and make this world a little bit more kind.